I'm Bruce Sterling, the curator of Casa Jasmina, and here we are in Casa Jasmina with our hard hats and drills, barely getting going. And this is our first guest, Jesse Howard, who has bravely joined us in a place that is like, there's no windows, there's no heat, there's no electricity, but he's here. He's guest number 0.
I'm happy to be here.
And I'm glad that you are here. So let's just start with some simple questions. And the immediate simple question is, who are you? Who is Jesse Howard? Why are you here?
So I'm here. I'm a designer. I'm from Amsterdam, from the US, based in Amsterdam now. And I found out about the Casa Jasmina project because of a sort of ongoing interest in open source objects and open source production.
So what is that? I mean, how would you explain open source household objects and appliances?
Yeah.
What makes them different from normal commercial objects?
Yeah, for me, what initially drew me to the whole world of open source was the idea that the user can take on a new role and become part of the production process, not only just an end user.
So you think it's about changing the user into a producer?
I think, that's kind of what brought me into it, is this idea that the user could start taking more responsibility as a producer or as a repairer of their own things.
Right.
And the kind of...
So, it's kind of a decision of like how much effort and work and understanding do you want to invest in the things around you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So how do you do that? I mean, do you need to go really deep with something like open structures and try and rebuild the entire industrial framework from nothing, or is it good enough to just find something and hack it to kind of like change the shell?
I mean, I think there's a whole range of things that work well in terms of this sort of idea of what an open source product could be. But I like to think of within this range that you ideally want to end up where your everyday person is gaining from having the product being openable or repairable or something they can take apart, but not inhibited by the fact that it either doesn't work or is too complicated to use.
So do you think it's like, as a designer, is it like a user-centric thing you want to do? You want to sort of valorize the user and improve his bargaining position and kind of make him more knowledgeable?
Well, I think that's one end, and then the other end, I think, when I look at the sort of traditional industrial production system, there's a lot of things there that aren't so nice for the way we're living now.
You seem kind of interested in open structures, and to me, open structures has almost like a Robinson Crusoe feeling to it. It's like I wanted to start over on a desert island and rebuild everything with a complete new logical framework. I mean, what appeals to you about that?
Yeah, I think what appeals to me, one thing that appeals to me about open structures is just the idea of going from products, like your everyday thing that's a totally closed kind of black box, to something that just from looking at it, you see that there's other possibilities there, that it can turn into something else.
So what kind of value judgments do you make on a thing like this? I mean, there are a lot of kind of open construction systems. There's like Tinker Toys, Meccano, IKEA sets, open structure stuff. There's kind of shareable 3D printed catalogs and material. Now, how do you sort of judge which ones are serious and kind of worth pursuing and which are not?
That's an interesting question. I think for me, it's not that one is better necessarily than another. What kind of drew me to open structures was the idea that it was so open, so you weren't working with a fixed number of things.
Right.
And that as a designer, you could actually grow that system and kind of steer it in ways that you want it to go. But in the end, my kind of end goal is always to have an object that is appealing enough that people would want it. I mean, that kind of is a base thing.
Yeah.
And I think if you stick only to using whatever it is, if it's Meccano or open beam, you start to limit that because you get into one kind of aesthetic.
Yeah. It's an interesting question, sort of, what do people want? And industrial designers have traditionally argued about that for a long time. Like, there used to be, in the early days of industrial design, there was streamlining and clean lining, where the idea was that you kind of put the object into a beautiful shell for the user. so that the user didn't have to trouble his pretty head. And he could just sort of go about his business. He would just, press the one button on top, and there's maybe 3 switches here, and then everything works. And if it breaks, I just get a new one. Whereas objects like the hypothetical mixer you've invented are sort of radically open, and they seem to be kind of proud to expose their guts. It's like, okay, here's a motor, and the screws are sort of attached in logical and reasonable ways. All the connectors come apart, and it's kind of easy to put together and reassemble. But those seem like kind of radically different philosophies.
Well, in a way they are, but I think what you say about these sort of black box products being, in the end, almost disposable, because once they break, you either can't physically open them without breaking it, or there's no one around
Right.
that's going to take the time to repair it. So, yeah, in a way, like making the things totally exposed, that immediately hopefully immediately communicates that thing should have a different sort of life cycle as an object. It should be repaired. It should be, at least now, like.
Am I supposed to phone up Jesse Howard and ask him how to fix my mixer?
Yeah, preferably not. No, but I think the idea of things like QR codes, we have them now, and they work pretty well for that you can have a physical thing and then get a lot of information digitally about it, and hopefully enough that you could find those
Right.
replacement parts or what have you.
Well, what comes next for you? I mean, what stands in your way? I mean, if you could change one important thing about your work that would sort of like get you going to the next level, what would that be?
Well, it's a bit what we've been talking about already, but this idea of getting more people around it. And
You need
doing
a
it.
user base.
I need a user base.
You need a community.
You need people
You
to-
need developers.
Yeah. So, and then by that token, you need things that people can easily start to develop and
All right.
take on.
So why don't you say something about the project that you're running here in Torino in the next few days?
Okay, so we're running a workshop together with 2 of the people from Arduino, and the idea of the workshop was to make an open source and connected object. In this case, it's
Good.
here
Here
it
comes
is.
one.
So here's one. This is one of the first prototypes, and the idea was to based on the Arduino Uno as the kind of the connectivity part. To make in this case a lamp, but a lamp that this is sort of the framework. This is how we imagined it.
So this is where the
one
light
way.
comes
So
out.
it's
We have a strip of tunable LEDs
so
in
there's
here.
an RGB LED strip here.
But
then
are
there's
the electronic components in this part
so a
here?
power supply and the Arduino kind of housed in here. So those are the kind of requirements. It needs to be somehow, you need space for those things. You need a place for the light to shine out. But other than that, the actual shape and construction will be up to the participants of the workshop.
I see.
So it's an exercise both in, like once you have this kind of framework, what does it turn into based on what other people want and different forms it can take. So
Does it have a name?
It does have a name. It's the Oscola.
The Oscola.
So it's the open source connected lamp.
The open source connected lamp. Well, it's a pity we can't plug it in and have at it. But,
soon.
It'll be interesting to see what mutant offspring it has here.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what kind of family comes out of other people taking this framework and going somewhere with it.
That's great. Welcome to Turin.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for talking to us.
Great, thank you.